mean they didn't receive it, or what's the implication? Or then just not interested, or they don't associate it with the regional council?
Of the 35.9%, sorry, that don't recall? It could be that, again, it wasn't something that was of interest to them.
I expect that it's just tossed out with the other junk mail.
Yeah.
Because that's how it comes. And it leads on to a question: do you believe that the present method of circulation or distribution is most effective? I guess cost comes into it, of course. Yeah.
Again, so that's a 3 times a year delivery, and that was part of our review process in terms of continuous improvement, and we still feel that that is the best way for us to reach the entire regional community. Yeah.
But it goes out with a contractor that also delivers other advertising material.
Yes, and that's part of the cost, managing those costs, isn't it, of delivery?
Does it go into every letterbox, or if the letterbox says no junk mail, what happens then?
It's not a flyer, it's a newspaper, if you will, so it does typically get delivered, but it will depend on the deliverer.
For example, I understand the courier is not delivered to letterboxes that say no junk mail or whatever.
Yeah.
But that definitely goes to every letterbox?
I believe so, yes. Yes.
Can you check on that for us?
That's my understanding with our distribution agent.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And I mean, the point to note there is obviously looking back at 2005. Didn't recall it 50%. We've dropped that down to 35.9%. So I would say it's more relevant now than it has been previously. And again, it's well received. We're in the home straight. Last couple of slides. How would you rate the value of services you receive for your regional council rates? So there's some areas here for us to just have a look at around ratings for very poor value and poor value, and just breaking those down on the right hand side. So those that said very poor value for regional council rates, specifically they talked of lack of services, concern about expenditure and accountability, or concern over environmental issues. While they are low numbers and a low level of responses, it's still certainly worthwhile us having a look into that information. Poor value, lack of services, concern about expenditure and accountability, concern over environmental issues, and don't know or see what they do, which there's not too much you can do with that. But I think, overall, the favourable indicators around acceptable value, good value, very good value, rated at 67.4%, which is an extremely positive rating, and the lower ratings at 16.7%. So again, this is something for us to look into, which we'll be doing. And the last one. So we did ask, and not tongue-in-cheek, but if you could afford to pay a little more, what would you like to see the money spent on? And the overriding one was, look, I don't know, nothing, or I can't answer. 30% of people said that, but interestingly, below that at 22%, water issues, parks, reserves, planting and habitat, below that at 6.4%, roading and transport sat at 7.3%, cycle tracks and walkways sat at 3.3%. So I think it validates largely our current focus on water issues, on public transport provision, on the work in parks and open spaces and Hawke's Bay trails. Potentially there's a little bit more analysis there through the survey that we need to look at dealing with the dissatisfaction with regional council and those poor value ratings. But overall, a very positive response for the survey, the 2013 survey, and this result's going to go before the leadership team who meet on Monday morning, and we'll be again looking at what further actions we can take from these results.
Final question, or someone happy to move? Councillor Douglas?
As well, but I just wanted to confirm who did the survey. That's my first question.
Yeah, so it was undertaken by Sill Research, Dr. Virgil Troy.
Oh, yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And my other I guess it's a question / comment. In your conclusion, you've said the survey results are used internally and available, etc. I'm a bit like Lloyd George here. I actually think war shouldn't be left to the generals. I actually think this is actually a regional council law document, very much so. So it's much more than just simply a staff one.
Fabulous.
Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you happy to move?
Sure.
Are you have a question? or comment? Do you want to wait till it's moved, or have you got a question? Comment. Okay, moved, seconded. Wish to speak further?
Oh, yes, sir. I mean, these are really tough things, sample surveys, and you've covered how the sample was drawn. It looks pretty strong in that sense. What I almost don't believe, as I said earlier, was the cluster right up in that top quadrant, and I think that has to be put out there in the public pretty well, even though I can say, as a person who's only just recently joined this august body, I had nothing to do with it. But I'll certainly claim it. That's all my comment is at the moment.
I would like to comment on that upper quadrant, which is quite astounding, actually. I don't think any statistical results don't have some outliers that are... So what it does tell us is we're hearing from the people, the silent majority. And that's quite amazing that there is a general awareness there of what the council does. It's certainly improved from when we did that community, whatever, the community values survey at the beginning of the local government 2002 reform, when people thought that the regional council was the bit between the two rivers. So, and I'm really pleased to see that an awareness has increased over that time as to the work, and it really is very encouraging, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mohi.
Well, just in support of that, a couple of weeks ago, a council-sponsored symposium, mainly focused on Māori, 50% Māori participation in the 70-odd people, and the idea of the symposium was to work out how Māori could engage with agencies better. And at the end of the symposium, Kevin Prime, one of the few Māori commissioners on the Environment Court, said that he thought that the Hawke's Bay Regional Council showed outstanding leadership and openness in the system, and he was the environmentalist of the decade for Northland in 1990, so someone who really knows his business, and he was very impressed with the services that were indicated through that symposium. So that actually supports your survey today. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, it's indeed a pleasing report, and Councillor Scott remarked that we heard from the silent majority. I think in these days of a lot of noise around certain issues, a famous politician a while ago, and it wasn't me or Councillor Douglas, said that you take notice of those, you take notice of those you don't hear. And I think that's probably what's telling us today.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully this will provide lots of good information to carry on and target the work. And I think there are learnings here as well as patting on the back. For example, just 50% of people thought that our council was the main organisation concerned with the environment in Hawke's Bay. That says something. Also, as far as the survey goes, one of the questions that we were talking about, it was talking about developing water storage. It didn't actually mention the dam or the Ruataniwha Dam or anything like that. So it was a very general question about how important is water storage, and of course water storage is very important, but I think it's a shame that maybe this wasn't used as a chance to get some general across-the-board public feedback about how they felt about the dam as such and the regional council's role in that. But I think that we have to be mindful that the phone is really important, and our receptionist Sally does an amazing job, because she's the one who answers 90% of those phone calls probably. So perhaps we need to pat her and the other staff on the back as well.
Thank you. You wish to sum up, Councillor Douglas? You happy? I'll put that motion, and all those in favour please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. I'm actually going to test something here with my colleagues. You would have noticed Stuart Webster has entered the room. I'm of the opinion that we could run our public excluded session in the public arena. So without having to go to a vote, is there just a general nodding of heads around the table on that particular issue? Everyone's comfortable with that? So instead of testing it as a public excluded item, I'm putting it out there that we actually just continue on with a decision item now while Mr. Webster's here and run it as a public session. You comfortable with that, Mr. Webster?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. Okay. Well, let's go then to item 16, which was issued and public excluded, but let's run it in a public session. HBRC Limited Directors conflict of interest issues.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think you need to pause for a few minutes and us start to provide the agenda items to the members of the public who are here.
Good point. Can we move on that? Okay. And in the meantime, perhaps you might like to verbally take us into how you got to where you got to, perhaps. And the information will be down shortly, or do you?
Honestly, I think you should wait until the material is there.
Okay. Well, on that basis, then let's go to.
Sorry.
It's going to take what, 5 minutes? Well, shall we go to the Lagoima? Sorry, excuse me for this. Councillor Dick is correct, though. And on that basis, let's go to item 11, please, Council. And I'll hand that over to Ms. Lambert. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm just introducing Annette Brosnan, who's our consents coordinator. And one of her responsibilities, Annette also coordinates all our Lagoima requests. So she has actually put together this paper, if you have any specific questions about it. But the first part of it is really the first attachment is a fact sheet, really describing what official information is, when it's held, when it's perhaps not held, and just to reinforce that a number of staff through this within this organisation have had updated Lagoima training within the last 12 months. So we have refreshers reasonably often just to remind us of what it involves, and we have set up a system now where we do record in a table and assign numbers to all our official information requests, on the basis that we may get duplicated requests, and so we can quickly pull it back up again, pull the information back up and send it back out. So with that, I'll hand over to Annette if she's got any comments that she wishes to make, and she will perhaps answer directly any questions you may have around attachment 2, which is the specific requests.
Well, should we just, if there's nothing particular, should we just go to questions perhaps?
More than happy, Mr.
Happy
Chair.
with that? Any questions? Councillor Dick.
Why are on the back of that sheet are some of those in yellow?
They're still in process.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so
okay, so the others have been dealt with.
Information provided. That's correct.
Thank you.
Those who you identify solely by name and not by organisation, if somebody calls up seeking that information, do you request from them, are they calling on behalf of an organisation or a political party or whatever?
I guess sort of the prelude to your question, Councillor Rose, is that every request that comes in, every phone call that gets made into this organisation usually has some sort of request attached to it, and that's something that we need to deal with under the Act. Not all of them get onto this spreadsheet because that would be every staff member, every request. So most of the requests that come onto the spreadsheet are ones that people have made in an official manner and usually in writing. When I've attached a name to it, like Dom Post or Hawke's Bay Today or something like that, it's because it's usually just been made very clear as part of their request that they're requesting it in some sort of official capacity.
I think the human information, just expand a little, I'm perhaps a little concerned in the sense that I think we need to know if there is calls from perhaps a research unit department seeking information. irrespective of what particular party was about 7 or 8 there now.
Yeah, and
They would need to be identified, wouldn't they?
Yeah, quite often we do receive requests. Eugenie Sage is one we quite often receive requests from, and she does it on her official letterhead, and that comes through, and we do put next to it that it's come from that parliamentary team.
I think that's irrespective of what party.
Yes.
Okay, any Councillor Remiswell?
Thank you. Just on the number 2 issue in the paper here, it says in number 2, a note written in your diary given to your sister for Christmas.
Oh, right, I see where you are.
Can you just explain what that means, please?
So the fact sheet that I attached was an example of a training material that I speak to when I go and speak to teams on an individual basis, and Council thought it would be good for you to see the kinds of training that we give our teams. That particular, a note written in your diary, maybe it's a diary that your sister gave you for Christmas, but it's a work note, and I put the question in a training session, do you consider that information that this council holds? And the consensus is usually no. It's my diary, my sister gave it to me, I take it home with me every night, and I use that point to illustrate that actually, yes, that is official information because you have written in it in your official capacity, or you have written a note in there about work. It is information that this council holds.
Thank you. Another one, number 4, about the public interest. Except the conclusive reasons does change over time. What does conclusive reasons mean, please?
So in the Act, and I think it's Section 6 of the Act, and this is Lagoima, 1987, it sets out that there are conclusive reasons for withholding information, and just off my memory, they are that it would endanger the public or endanger the maintenance of the law. So a common one for that would be, give me the name of the person who dobbed me in on the pollution hotline. We would not provide that information, even if it was held in high public interest, because it would endanger a person and endanger the maintenance of the law. Yeah.
And just through you, Mr. Chair, as far as number 6 goes, you've stated there that parts of documents can be deleted, but the full document can be given. Is that right? And we don't see that often at this council table, do we? That where we do that, we tend to put something in public. I suppose that's different to Lagoima, though, isn't it?
It is different, yeah. But that's just saying that if you have a whole document and someone has requested that document, and there may be a part in there which would say put someone at risk or would disadvantage a commercial activity or whatever reason, that particular part you can just delete from the document by blacking it out, as opposed to withholding the whole thing.
It's just coming back to the list of requests that you have. Some of these are from media. How many of these could have been achieved simply by ringing and saying, can I have some information, rather than going through Lagoima?
A lot of the media ones, I must say, are just via email, and they're responded to same day. Just because they've got on this doesn't mean it's been a lengthy, drawn-out process at our end. A lot of them are, I'll put them on in the morning and they're off by lunchtime. But the media do like to send an email through, and they do it through our comms team, and we do get a lot of those.
I make a further comment in regard to that. We do notice an increase in Lagoima requests from media just prior to Christmas, because they have January editions to fill with not much news.
Mm.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Chairman. The schedule, what is this prefix T dash, like T dash Tom Belford? T-Corina Jordan.
The Tuki plan change they asked is, Helen Codlin asked that if a particular information request was received that was specific to Tuki, that we just identify that so she can keep an eye on official information requests.
That's the
as well.
Tuki plan change.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. How do you delete the parts of a document? Do you black it out, or is it rejigged without those bits in it?
It has been blacked out in the past. I think I haven't actually done one for quite a long time, but I believe the Cowie report was an example of where we had deleted parts of the document a few years ago, and they were I think they were twinked out and then photocopied, and so it came up black where the words were.
Just as an aside, I can confirm as a person who's asked for documents that were finally delivered in 3 parts over 1 year, they were actually taken out internally on the machine. But unfortunately, when you press certain buttons, you could actually read them. So I think the old-fashioned one of just twinking it out is much better. Can I just ask a question about charging? It's the one that's running 8 to the 7th, top of the second page. How do you determine whether something is charged and something is just done?
Is just done. So this council has a policy in its annual plan, in which is in line with the Ministry of Justice charging guidelines for Lagoima requests, and that is that we will provide 1 hour of staff time free and up to 20 pages of photocopying. I mean, sometimes there's a little bit of staff discretion involved in there. If you're talking about 1 hour and 10 minutes, we'll in most cases just provide that. So when it becomes apparent that the request is for a significant amount of information, the process I run is that I talk to all the staff involved and get an estimate of time from them, and then we then go back to the requester with an estimate of costs based on those times, and we, under the Act, usually require them to pay in advance of us doing the work.
And if I can follow that respect, can I just ask, is the policy a council policy or a staff policy?
It's in our annual plan, it is a council policy.
Further questions? Councillor Rem as well.
Thank you. What is Chandler in response to a request about GNS science by Peter Fowler, please? Or who is Chandler?